for today and tomorrow's lesson done now, rather than I just make you come along at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's quite straightforward stuff. Very little advancement on GCSE really, so it makes sense to get it out of the way in one go, I think. Just a quick recap on where we are. I mean, this might be 24 hours out of date, but last time I checked, thank you very much for Joe, Hattie, and Alex, who I've had the mechanics test for some while, and they're marked. Thanks also for Evie. I know I've had yours a few days. I haven't got around to marking that one yet, but it's on my to-do list. And last I looked, I'm still waiting for the mechanics test from Tom, Katrina, and Nathan. Now, maybe you've uploaded it in the last 24 hours, but if you haven't, if you could just try and get that uploaded before half term, please. I'd like to get those. I'd like to keep up to date, so we're only sort of one test out of sync, really.
Mr. Withers,
yeah.
I'm just uploading it onto our class notebook area and then onto topic tests.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
Okay, yeah, mine's on there now.
That'd be great. Yeah. So I'm just trying to. No, I think it's class. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Thank you. Right. So we, as you know, we're on to Pure 2. You are doing You've done Chapter 1, apart from that proof by contradiction with Mr. Kent. So that's still Chapter 1, but sort of Unit 2, if you like. I think you're pretty much done on that with Mr. Kent. I think, and then he's moving on. He's going to move on after half term with your Chapter 2. So I'm picking up Chapter 3, which is sequences and series. Okay, so sequences is when you've just got a number of terms sort of with commas between them, if you like. It's just a series, it's just a number of terms, so 1, 3, 5, what have you. And it's called series once you actually start adding those terms together. Okay, so we need to get that clear in our mind. So it's sequence when they are just consecutive terms. Okay, now it's an arithmetic sequence when the difference between each of them is a constant. So you're just adding on the same amount each term. This is what we've done at IGCSE as just being the nth term. So there's nothing new here, okay? But I said there's nothing new. The sequences are still the same, but I do want you to get familiar with this form of the nth term. So this is really what you need to become comfortable with, please, guys. So all we're saying here is that any term is the first term plus n-1 lots of the common difference. So let me just explain that to you. Let's just put that into an example. So here we've got an arithmetic sequence over here in purple, 2, 5, 8, 11, 14. Clearly our first term A is 2, and clearly our common difference is 3. So A would be 2, D would be 3. And this n-1 business, that's just appreciating the fact that the position in the sequence, so remember n is the position in the sequence. So this is the first term, n is 1. This is the second term, n is 2, and so on. But the difference between the position and the number of d's is 1. So let's just put this sequence into general terminology. A is the first term. To get the 5, we've then gone and added on d. So that's a plus d. To get the 8, we've then added on another d. So that's a plus d, 2d, and then a plus 3d, and so on. And you can see the difference between the position, 3, and the number of d's, 2, is always 1 less. So that's all we're saying over here. That's all this n-1 business is about, okay? So, yeah, so if we just go to forget that example over on the right now, let's just stick with the one they gave us, so this blue stuff. So with our GCSE hat on, we would, with this sequence here, have just said our nth term, we'd say what's our common difference? It is 2, so that's 2n. And I don't know how you were taught, but I used to teach it that the adjustment was the 0th term. So that would be the term in front of the sequence, so one that doesn't exist. So our 0th term would be plus 3. So with our IGCSE hat on, we would say the nth term there is 2n plus 3. So if we were working at the 100th term, we would just pop 100 into that and get 203. Now, just using the slightly more complicated but same formula here, what we're saying is the 100th form is A, which is 5, first term, plus n minus 1, so 99 lots of D, which is 2, 5 out of 198 also tells us that the 100th term is 203. So this is an nth term formula, a slightly more complicated one than we're sort of familiar with from IGCSE, but this is what we need to get familiar with. So we then have a number of examples. So I'll just read through the examples. I mean, this is, again, it's all just very much GCSE standard here. Okay, so if you want to work through those examples, please do. And then that takes us into exercise 3A. And again, I'm totally happy that you just dot around in this. You can see when I've taught this in the past, we've just done A and D for number 1, and C and F for number 2, and so on. So perhaps you just want to follow what I've done in lessons in the past, and we've just done the red circle bits. That's what we would be doing if we were doing this in class. So we've got a few questions there. Yeah, then once we get on to where there's no parts to them, if you could just do those in their entirety, that would be good. So that takes us through that exercise. Now, this was the bit I was going to leave until tomorrow, but I've changed my mind. I want to cover this as well, please, today. So, so this is 3.2. This is arithmetic series. So this is the point I was saying a bit earlier. When you've just got the commas between them, when it's a list, that's when it's called a sequence. But when you start adding them, that's when it's called a series. And this example here is before we get to the formula. It's just spotting that if you've got a sequence and then you reverse it, there's a clever way of working out what the sum of all the terms is. So perhaps have a quick look at example 4, please. Now, this is the key bit. This is the formula that we use for working out the sum of a number of terms in arithmetic series. Now, this is in the IGCSE, so this you should be familiar with because this has been in the IGCSE syllabus for a couple of years. So whether you did additional maths or not, you should have come across this formula. I mean, it would typically be one of the harder questions at IGCSE, but it was there. Now, the good news is the formula is given at A level. All right, this is just extracted from the formula booklet. So really, this exercise 3B, we're getting used to using the formula that you've seen before, but there is also an alternative formula. If you happen to know what the last term is, you can use this second formula as an alternative formula to do the same job. It works out the sum of a number of terms. And again, that's given. Over here, you'll see it's given. So if you happen to know the number of terms, you know the first term, you know the last term, you can just use this easier formula. If you don't know what L is, you don't know the last term, then you've got to stick with the formula you've seen at IGCSE. Now, this example 5 proves the formula. In the good old days, when the A level was a bit easier, this used to come up as a proof quite often in Core 1. I think you would be very lucky for it to come up as a question nowadays in the exam, but it could do. It's in the syllabus. So I would suggest you just copy out that proof, please. It's not that difficult, but if you just copy that out in your own time, so that is in the syllabus, but I think nowadays it's quite unlikely to come up. And then a couple of examples where you're just substituting in the information. And then that leads us into exercise 3B, okay? And again, I don't think I've actually done all of this one. I would suggest you just dot around where we've got the parts. So I dot around on 1 and 2. Yes, then I kicked in doing them from 3. So that gives us 3B. So how big is 3B? Well, I haven't finished all those, but yeah, it's quite big. It's quite a big one. And then that takes us on to geometric sequences, which is when you multiply together the next term, and we'll obviously leave that. So I'm hoping you can break the back of 3A and 3B, today's lesson and tomorrow's lesson. I think we should touch base after that. At the beginning of next term, perhaps I'll make a little note to get in touch with you, and then you guys can let me know whether you feel you're ready to move on to 3.3 or whether you'd like another lesson to be allocated for 3.3. But let's see how you go. I could appreciate that 3B was quite long, but it's not that difficult, this stuff. So let's just see how we go on that. So to conclude, 3 of you, well, I think Nathan, you said you've done it. If you could get that mechanics test to me, that would be great.
I just found it in.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you very much. So we've got 3A and 3B to do. Today's lesson, Friday's lesson, period 2. I must admit, I haven't put into my diary yet how the lessons look after half term, but I don't know if we've got a lesson on the first day back or not. We'll touch base for when we're back after half term. You can tell me whether you feel you need some more time, because I don't want you guys feeling you've got to do this over half term. I want you to have a break. So let's see. I tell you what, maybe at the end of tomorrow, once you've done your lesson time tomorrow, if you could just drop me a one-liner on whether you think you're good to go with 3A or 3B, or whether you'd like another lesson, then I can mull over it over the half term. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a lovely half term when it arrives. Take care, all of you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.